Rome's power wasn't just its armies. It relied on complex systems across the empire. Roads connected distant cities, letting messages, goods, and ideas travel efficiently. Aqueducts brought water to cities, keeping them alive and thriving for centuries. Grain shipments moved constantly, preventing famine and feeding millions of people. Warehouses stored essential resources, ready for emergencies or military campaigns. Ports were always busy, ensuring trade and communication flowed across the Mediterranean. Bridges and tunnels were carefully built to help armies and merchants move quickly. Weapons, tools, and construction materials were made in large quantities with precision. Workshops followed strict supervision to maintain quality and efficiency throughout Rome. Skilled artisans trained apprentices, spreading knowledge across every province. Taxes were collected methodically, funding both public projects and the army. Rome had early record-keeping systems to track resources accurately across the empire. Couriers and signal towers allowed news to spread faster than ever before. Administrators coordinated supply chains and labor across thousands of kilometers. Cities had uniform streets, forums, and markets to reduce chaos and maximize order. Laws were applied evenly, keeping stability even in the farthest provinces. Power depended as much on efficient systems as on emperors or generals. A single disruption in the supply chain could affect armies or entire regions. Intelligence networks watched for unrest, enabling preemptive action before crises. Governors were responsible for local stability and the smooth running of bureaucracy. Rome's engineers developed hydraulic systems that rival modern machines in ingenuity. Mills harnessed water power to grind grain, sometimes working in massive chains. Some production sites had more than a dozen mills operating simultaneously. Stone was cut with precision, using techniques lost for centuries after Rome's fall. Metalworking produced tools and weapons consistently across the empire. Roads weren't just wide. They were engineered for drainage and durability. Cities had public baths, demonstrating Rome's investment in hygiene and culture. Large-scale planning allowed urban centers to function without chaos. Food markets were supplied daily, even in distant provinces far from Rome. Shipyards produced warships and trade vessels efficiently, connecting the Mediterranean. Rome's navy enforced trade routes, keeping commerce safe from pirates. Soldiers weren't just fighters. They were also engineers and builders. Military camps could be assembled and disassembled quickly using standardized plans. Siege engines were created with knowledge of physics and mechanics. Romans mapped their empire meticulously, aiding movement and strategy. Measurement systems allowed consistency across provinces from weights to distances. Currency facilitated trade, yet complex bartering networks still existed in rural areas. Grain reserves were stored to prevent famine during political upheaval. Roads and aqueducts were maintained by paid workers with specialized skills. Infrastructure investment created long-term economic stability across centuries. The Roman Empire standardized brick and timber dimensions for efficiency. Architects designed public buildings with both function and aesthetics in mind. Amphitheaters and forums reflected social priorities and urban organization. Engineers could build multi-level structures with long-lasting stability. Concrete formulas used volcanic ash, creating materials that strengthened over time. Some Roman structures still stand because of this advanced concrete technology. Knowledge was centralized in libraries, workshops, and state-run schools. Innovation spread from the capital to far-flung provinces efficiently. Water distribution in cities demonstrated advanced understanding of hydraulics. Public fountains provided both convenience and civic pride. Roads weren't merely for movement. They were tools of administration and control. Postal systems allowed information to traverse hundreds of miles in days. The empire leveraged its size to create economies of scale in production. Standardized shipbuilding allowed faster construction and easier repairs. Stone quarries supplied massive construction projects efficiently. Roman surveying techniques were precise enough to plan entire cities. Bridges spanned rivers with careful calculation, some surviving millennia. Water pressure and flow were controlled to supply baths and fountains alike. Mines were organized to extract valuable resources systematically. Trade connected Rome to distant lands, bringing silk, spices, and metals. Wealth was stored, distributed, and reinvested to maintain both military and civil projects. Grain was not just food. It was currency and political power. Markets were controlled to avoid shortages and social unrest. Rome used early forms of accounting to monitor both income and expenditure. Armies transported their own supplies along engineered roads, reducing dependence. Some cities had complex sewage systems, showing advanced urban planning. Roman artisans created identical tools across provinces, aiding repair and replacement. Water wheels powered mechanical devices, a form of proto-automation. State workshops produced everything from armor to construction cranes. Knowledge was applied practically, not just stored as theory. Legal frameworks ensured trade and contracts were honored empire-wide. Governors enforced laws that allowed business to function predictably. Roman coinage simplified trade but didn't eliminate regional barter systems. Grain doles were used to maintain political favor and urban stability. Engineers experimented with early forms of hydraulic machinery. Water power wasn't rare. It was integrated into industrial processes. Mills could grind hundreds of tons of grain per year in large complexes. Workshops and factories were coordinated to avoid duplication or waste. Infrastructure was maintained proactively to prevent decay and collapse. Trade networks extended from Britain to Egypt, connecting diverse economies. Large-scale military campaigns required precise logistics, not just manpower. Supply lines stretched hundreds of kilometers, supported by depots along the way. Armies could march quickly thanks to roads and careful planning. Cavalry and messengers ensured rapid communication across provinces. Early surveying tools allowed consistent mapping across vast territories. Standardized units of measure simplified commerce, construction, and taxation. Rome's economic systems allowed wealth to circulate while maintaining state control. Artisans and engineers formed the backbone of practical knowledge and skill. Political stability allowed long-term planning and infrastructure investment. Natural resources were managed for sustainability, including water, stone, and metals. Cities were centers of production, trade, and administration, not just culture. Wealth accumulation fueled construction and technological experimentation. Taxes were collected efficiently, funding public projects and the military alike. Legal and administrative frameworks ensured stability across centuries. Rome's success was built on organization, not just conquest. Infrastructure and knowledge allowed society to operate smoothly at massive scale. Much of what we call modern industry existed in rudimentary form in Rome, yet the empire eventually declined, leaving knowledge scattered and lost. The potential for an industrial revolution existed centuries before it actually happened. Rome shows us that civilization's greatest threat is not ignorance, but complacency.